All right, 1 second here. All right, welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, I want to welcome everyone. This Q&A question came in. Interesting question that comes up quite a bit, and that is why did God take me out of my family? In other words, person, let's say, converts, or is a JIT, Jew in training, or is a Noahide, right? Question is, why did God take me out of my family? Why didn't my parents go in this path? My siblings go in this path? Is there any significance? It was just you, right? It was just this person that went on the path and nobody else. Was a person born with a Jewish spark and your family wasn't? So whatever, a lot of subset questions here, right? So I remember many years ago, I was going to write a book about my own life, which I did actually put in an ebook. Never published it, but anybody wants it, I can send it to them. But my life story, one day I hope to print it. And so one of the ways I was going to do it was I was going to take different people's stories and go through it, go through people's stories, and then compare and contrast, go through different issues, that people have gone through, so I started speaking to people that were baalei teshuva, that were returnees to Judaism. And this is really before I got involved with converts and Noahides and all that. So I interviewed somebody who basically became religious in their 30s. They became religious in their 30s. They have 4 kids, right? And for all their 4 kids also became religious. Now, interesting enough, they were older. They're like teenagers, so it's a lot harder. I think it's a lot harder when people are older, never really been exposed and come into it, and they send them to Jewish schools. And actually, one of these kids, one of the sons, is actually my daughter's father-in-law, so actually married into the family. And interesting enough, so I asked the father, how he became religious. And so he told me, he said, that's not the question. He said, the question you should ask is, why didn't my family come for the ride? Why was it only me? I could say the same thing about myself. I got 2 brothers, seemingly holding nowhere in the world spiritually. Could ask the same thing, pretty much no one in my family like that. Cousins, relatives, etc. Right? But so the person said, they told me the story afterwards. But they said the question is, so why me? Why me? If we saw the same thing, if we experience the same thing, why is it one person sees it, changes their life, goes through the proper channels, changes their life, etc., whether they become a baalei teshuva as a Jew or as a convert or whatever the case is, right? So, they go through that process. They want to share it with their family, and their family says, not interested. Not interested. Now, it's interesting. It's interesting because, they'll say, okay, we're not interested. We don't want any part of it. And we mentioned many times how to deal with family and friends in general, and they make you feel like a pariah. They make you feel different. We haven't changed. You changed. Or people coming out of Christianity, someone told me, their father said, can it really be? You really think, I've been in the church 50 years more. You really think the church has lied to me? Yeah. As a matter of fact, they have. Right? So a person couldn't imagine. How could they lied to me? So the family doesn't necessarily come along for the ride. I always say that, if you want to test it, if you really want to test it, how open-minded people are. Because secular people are not that open-minded. If they're leftist, they're for sure not open-minded. Now, no one's going to claim by me that I'm open-minded. Certainly not. Never claimed to be open-minded. Never claimed to be politically correct either, as most people know. So, so what happened to being open-minded over here? So what's the test? The test is go to a family function that you're allowed to go to. Let's say family gets together on the day you can go, let's say, and you don't eat there. You don't eat what everyone else is eating. Either you ate before, you have a drink, or you brought your own food. See how far that goes. So Coffman's law is that they're going to be highly offended. What? My food's not good enough? It's not kosher enough? 2 weeks ago, you would eat this. Now you don't eat it. That's the big test. When a person doesn't go out to eat with them, when they don't eat the same foods in their house, that's a good test. Because guaranteed, person is going to get offended. They're going to get offended. And they're going to say, I remember you used to do this, used to do that. Now it's holier than now. Now let's keep in mind, for a non-Jew who's converting, if they convert, or even about teshuvah, Jew doesn't know anything about Judaism, comes back to Judaism, if somebody says, let's say better, if a Jew says, I remember you used to eat shrimp. I remember, don't give me the business about religion. I remember you before you were Jewish. That's a Torah prohibition called onus devarim. Reminding people of their past. You don't think we're remembered of our past? You take someone, someone converts, let's say they're Hispanic or they're a person of color. You have to remind them they weren't born Jewish. They look in the mirror every day. They're going to be reminded, right? That's not even the point, right? Person reminds someone of their past, of what they've done wrong. So the Ramchal in Mesilas Yesharim, the Rabbi Chaim Coffman, blessed memory, brings down and passes the just, chapter 11, talking about Nikias, about being clean of any thoughts of sin, any sins, staying away from sin. And he says over there, onus devarim, in other words, reminding a person of their past and past sins, is even worse than onus mama, charging more, charging much more for something. In other words, person buys something, they jack up the price 300%. They're not allowed to. You're allowed to make a profit. True. But it can't be absurd. And that's pretty bad, especially when people misrepresent what it is and all that. But the Ramchal there says that's bad. 100% that's bad. Reminding someone of their past, that's 10 times worse. 10 times worse. Now the question would be, what about a non-Jew? What about a non-Jew? If a non-Jew would remind another non-Jew of their past, and they say, hey, I remember you used to eat this. I remember you used to do this. Holier than now. Is there a prohibition of onus devarim, of reminding a person's past for a non-Jew? What's the simple answer? Simple answer is no. Now, Coffman would say, even though it's not forbidden, we'd call it a moral imperative. What's a moral imperative? It means it's not a good thing to do, but you're not obligated according to the Noahide laws. Right? Speaking Lashon Hara, speaking badly against others. Many things in those laws that don't make sense rationally. Non-Jews have to keep things they don't convert that make sense logically. Now again, what would Coffman say? Is a non-Jew obligated to keep the laws of Lashon Hara? No. Is it a moral imperative? Is it a good thing for them, to learn the laws and stay away from them? Not speak Lashon Hara. It's a moral imperative. Obligation? No. They don't have an obligation. Totally not an obligation. Right? But what does this do? Essentially what it does is it weakens, if not destroys, connection between family members. Now, someone will make the claim and say, come on, Rabbi, religion's not supposed to destroy family. You're right. It's not supposed to, but guess what? There are things I'm allowed to do. There are things I'm not allowed to do. There are things that God says you can do, things you can't do. So that gets into the bigger question, which we're not going to get into, which I discussed on Tanakh Talk in one of my proofs in oral law. And that is, how do we know the Torah is true? How do we know there are other false religions and we really believe the Torah is true? That's not the topic for me. But the bottom line is, if God spoke on Mount Sinai, then what's my obligation? What am I obligated to do as a Jew or a non-Jew? So I think it's crucial for non-Jews to read the book by the Ramchal, Derech Hashem, The Way of God. Why God created the world. What's the purpose of the nations? Reincarnation. The evil inclination, how it works. Spiritual forces. Just so happens gave a course on this. For Noahide nations. Also gave a class on it for a couple of years also. Book that changed my life. Non-Jews also have to know. Right? They should also know what's the purpose of living. What am I doing here? Right? But it doesn't mean, let's get back to the question here. But it doesn't mean that family is going to come along. Right? Doesn't mean that. Totally doesn't mean that. Now, it would be nice. I have some friends where the family came along. The siblings became religious. Parents became religious. Or somewhere the siblings became religious. Parents, very respectful, keep a certain amount, whatever it is. And I know other people, like a friend of mine, became religious same time as me or a little bit before. Parents totally cut them off. Totally cut them off. That's how open-minded they were. Refused to see him, pretty much. He got married, has kids. Father passed away, never seen his wife or kid. His mother had a merit to see his wife and kids. Gee, what happened to being open-minded? So the question is, now we'll deal with it step by step. Why did Hashem take me out of my family? Now, Hashem didn't take you out of your family. You took yourself out of your family. Your soul, that spark, because you were searching for truth, right? Person searching for truth, what does the Talmud say? If a person goes in the right direction, God will help them. If a person goes in the wrong direction, God will not stop them. So now, the last part of the question is, was I born with a Jewish spark and my family wasn't? So anybody who wants to convert, we'll talk about conversion. Person who wants to convert 100%, we hold that their soul was at Mount Sinai and their soul heard God give the Torah and give it over to Moshe. So what happened? How did that soul become non-Jewish? Oh, that's a good question. Right? That's Kabbalah we're not going to get into. Right? But the point is that at some point that soul was Jewish. Now, Coffman would say, how did that soul get messed up? How did it get messed up? Assimilation and intermarriage. Now, all you need is a couple generations or one generation of intermarriage. The mother's not Jewish. That's what we hold. Regardless of what Reform and conservative movements hold. We hold Judaism goes through the mother. The tribe, if you're a Kohen, Levite, or whatever, goes through the father. So if the mother's Jewish, the child's Jewish. That's the bottom line. So 2 generations later, 3 generations later, let's say, there's assimilation, there's intermarriage. So that soul now is not a Jewish soul. Right, exactly how that works Kabbalistically is a whole discussion, but that's not a Jewish soul. So now that person, at some point, there's that spark that was there at Mount Sinai. Because the spark was there at Mount Sinai, it can want to convert. Not just, I looked at Christianity, it didn't make sense, contradictions, all kinds of things. That's also true. But see, 80% or more of the Torah itself makes no sense. It doesn't make any rational sense. Example, imagine on the holiday of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles as it's called. A non-Jew walks into a synagogue during the week, and during the week, they're in the middle of Hallel, those Thanksgiving Psalms from Psalm 145 to 150, that we say on every holiday and on the new month of Rosh, whatever the month is, of Rosh Chodesh. So imagine during that part of the service, right, a Jew's going to take his lulav, his esrog, right, his lemon on steroids, as I would call it, his willows, his myrtle leaves, and what are they going to do? What are they going to do? They're going to shake it. They're going to go like this. They're going to shake it like this. They're going to shake it like this. I have a video on my YouTube channel at Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, how to shake a lulav. So imagine a non-Jew happens to be in a synagogue, an Orthodox synagogue, and they see all these Jews, and they see them going like this, and they see them going like this, and they're going like this. They're going to say, what in the world is going on? What are they doing with these willows? These myrtle leaves, my lemon on steroids, my lulav, right? Most Jews don't know what these things really represent. So how do I know what it is? I grew up with it. I sat in the sukkah before I became religious. I shook a lulav before. So not like you don't know what it is, right? A non-Jew takes a look at that and says, come on, what are they doing? Doesn't make any sense. Plenty of other mitzvahs, that don't make sense. Keeping kosher. I take kosher meat. I take kosher cheese. I put them together, and that's a Torah prohibition, right? I put them together with heat. Torah prohibition, right? Certain animals I can't eat. A Jew's not allowed to eat. Torah doesn't tell me why. Torah only tells me, fish, if they have scales, they'll have fins, those I'm allowed to eat. Certain birds, I'm allowed to eat. Certain animals, I'm allowed to eat. That's it. So what's the reason? One explanation could be that Jews do not eat animals that are predators. We don't eat animals that are predators. Now, it could be if a Jew eats an animal, that's a predator. So we'll take on those character traits. Why? Because if we eat the blood, it's the soul of the animal. So we can take on certain these character traits. Now, what's someone going to tell me? Someone's going to say, come on, science has never proven it. And as we always say, there are a million things science hasn't proven. So what? What science knows, they're only scraping at the surface. Science took a huge hit over the last 4 years, right? With Corona, make them look really, really stupid in the medical community. One little virus didn't know what to do. And at the very beginning, they so didn't know what to do. People died of starvation because they didn't know what to do. We're not going to talk about conspiracy theories, other things. Bottom line, the medical establishment looked pretty dumb. Now, there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of knowledge in the medical community. And there's a ton of knowledge they don't know. So just because it hasn't been proven doesn't mean it never happened. They took for granted before microscopes, cells and how cells work. No one ever said that was a leap of faith. Could have said, you get the cell, you get the nucleus, does this, DNA. But they couldn't see it. They couldn't see it with the naked eye. And everyone believed it verbatim because it was science. It can be proven logically. But they didn't see it. Right? They didn't see it unless they had a microscope. That was later. Oh, come on. That's not a leap of faith. That's science based on facts. What about evolution? You see, everyone in academia believes in evolution. Came from a hydra, a paramecium, to a creepy crawly thing, to a butterfly, to this, to that, to get to a human. Now, they never had shown the missing link. They don't have proof. They've never had proof. Remember, the 1990s, closest thing they had to proof was a set of teeth and a jawbone. Can't even tell you what kind of proof is that, right? But why do they swear by evolution? I remember I had to take 4 classes of a science, so I'm not really so scientifically inclined. I took a course in history and development of science in university, in college. In the vernacular, that's called evolution. So a professor gets up the first day, and the professor says, if you go to the zoo and you look at a chimpanzee in the face, you're looking at your cousin. I'm like, I don't know who's in your family. Like, I don't look like a chimp. I'm like, come on, right? But why does science swear by it? Even though, it hasn't been proven in all kinds of things. Why does science swear by it? Because there's only one other alternative. What's the other alternative? Genesis. Creation. That's the only other alternative. If you don't believe in creation, you got to believe in evolution. You have no choice. But, Stephen Hawking, a great scientist, of this generation, in the last 100 years. You take Albert Einstein, and there were certain things proven mathematically, but they refused to believe 100% there's a possibility the story of creation could be true. Stephen Hawking wrote a book, A Brief History in Time, and he seemed to prove at the end that there's an expanding universe. If there's an expanding universe, who's making it expand? Even if it says that there was a Big Bang, not necessarily contradiction to Genesis. Even so, who made the Big Bang? Who's causing this? What did Stephen Hawking say? Again, you're talking one of the greatest physicists. What did he say? He said, it looks like we've proven that the creationists are right. Because he's proven an expanding universe scientifically. But he said, we can't give them any credibility. we can't say that the creationists are right. So he said, one day we'll figure it out scientifically, mathematically. But so what did he do? He basically upended and uprooted everything that he proved. In other words, he's going to bring scientific proof to say, well, it looks like the creationists are right, but he can't say that. So what do you do with all the proof I just brought? You say, no, forget about it. My science, whatever. Forget it. Right? So if I would have been alive during that time, I would have said, Steve, Al, you got any scientific proof to show there's an expanding universe? That someone is keeping it expanding? Do you have any scientific proof for that? Steve, Al, you have any proof? No. You don't have any scientific proof. But what are they going to say? We'll find it. The missing link, we'll find it. All right, that wasn't my question. My question would have been straight. Do you have proof scientifically or not? Yes or no? Right? Multiple choice. Yes or no, no buts. What's the answer? No. Okay, so if you don't have an answer now, and you're probably not going to have one in the future, you at least have to entertain the possibility that the story of creation is true. No, we're not going to do that. That's called cognitive dissonance. You can't do that. What happened to, being openly, having your mind open here? What happened to being open-minded? right? But that's not the point here, right? The point is that for someone who want to come in to Judaism from the outside, as a Christian, as a former Muslim, whatever, and want to embrace Judaism, either because their religion didn't make any sense, they were searching for truth, whatever it was, they come to Judaism, and there are a lot of things that the Torah says makes no sense. Give another example, right? Torah says that if there's a mother bird hovering over eggs, you push away the mother bird at a certain point, you take the eggs. Egg drop soup, hard-boiled eggs. Someone's going to say that's cruel. How are you allowed to do that? That's cruel. Right? Guess what? Right? The Gemara says if a person says that's cruel, they're a heretic, essentially. Why are they a heretic? Because these laws are a decree. They're a divine decree. That being said, what does the Torah tell me further? If you do the mitzvah of shiluach hakein, shooing away the mother bird, taking the eggs, what does the Torah tell me? What do you get? Arichas yamim, long life. There's only one other mitzvah you get long life for, right? 10 Commandments, honoring parents. It's the only 2 mitzvahs. But the point is, shoo away the mother bird, take the eggs. Does that make rational sense? Nope. A Jew can't wear wool and linen together. Also doesn't make rational sense. Many things. So the point is, for a non-Jew to want to come to Torah mitzvahs or to want to stay in Noahide, they had to have a spark. They had to have a spark being at Mount Sinai. Without that spark at Mount Sinai, there's no rationale. There's no rationale whatsoever that a non-Jew is going to embrace Torah. Logically, if you tell me, I'll take it one step further. If you were to tell me that a non-Jew is going to look at Jewish history, you could see on the one hand, Jewish survival, absolutely miraculous. Any other nation would have been destroyed already. By the time of destruction of the Second Temple, we shouldn't be here. 100% we shouldn't be here. Then you get all the pogroms thrown out of, thrown out of Spain, thrown out of other countries. You got the massacres, of Chmielnicki, in Poland. You got the Holocaust, got other pogroms. We should not be here. Says Samuel Langhorne Clemens, i.e. Mark Twain, basically said the Jews that exist, it's a miracle. He went to the land of Israel, the late 1800s, and saw exactly what the prophets say, right? The land of Israel flattened like a pancake. Flattened like a pancake. Hardly anybody living there, right? All kinds of things. The Ramban, right, in the year 1100s, came, couldn't even find 10 Jews to pray with in Jerusalem. Which gets to the second biggest lie outside of Christianity. And that is there's a Palestinian people. Mark Twain comes to Jerusalem, comes to Israel. Gee, where are the Palestinians? Don't know. All you leftists out there can send you your hate mail right now. Where were they? They must have been hiding. They must have been in caves somewhere. Where were they? We don't hear anything. Trek of tears. They were thrown out of the country. They were murdered. They were butchered. They were a small minority, amongst the Turks. When the Turks were here, when the English were here, must have been tens of hundreds, thousands of people that were here that they totally oppressed. Gee, I don't know. Doesn't seem like that. We, the Jewish people, the Israelis, made this Palestinian people. They didn't exist. 22 Arab nations live around, surround Israel. Nobody wants these people. They're not their own entity. They were never their own entity. Right? Third biggest lie, evolution. It could be, could be 1A, 1B over here. Christianity will put at the top. And evolution and Palestinian people, 1A or 1B. But historically speaking, if you do your research properly, historically speaking, that's the conclusion. They were never here. But okay, so you tell me, I looked into the Jewish people. I looked into their survival. The fact that we shouldn't be here. My religion, quote unquote, didn't make any sense. But look at Jewish history. Look at Jewish history. The Jews shouldn't be here today. 100% they shouldn't be here today. The fact that we're here is miraculous. No question. 100% no question. So the fact that non-Jews want to be part of a nation, been made fun of, destroyed, killed, murdered, butchered, pretty miraculous. Pretty miraculous. So it's not because, I came to this realization, whatever, that's part of it. But what about everybody else? Right? That's the question. What about everybody else? How come they didn't see the same things? So you tell me, well, aren't they being brainwashed? Yeah, they are. They've been brainwashed by society. As we said, if they want to see the truth, they'll see it. If they don't want to see the truth, that's their choice. Today, it's not about truth. Today, most people don't care. And even if you can prove it to them, it doesn't matter. Right? So the question is, the subset question was I born with a Jewish spark? 100%. 100%. Right? I would say that's if you do convert. If you don't convert, you also have that spark to a certain extent. Just you don't take it that far and go through conversion. But it doesn't make any sense rationally why a non-Jew would want any part of this. A Jew I can understand. A Jew I can understand, they're born with it. Right? They have that different aspect of the soul. Right? 100%. They have that different aspect. Right? So even so with that, so what? For a Jew, it makes more sense because they have more of a connection. For a non-Jew to come to it, makes no sense. So I would say, you're right. You're born with that spark. You're born with that spark. And that's the reason you won't have a connection, right? That's the reason you won't have a connection, to Judaism. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense otherwise. So that's that part of the question. Now the other part is like this. Now what do we say? Question was, why did God take you out of your family? Now you have that spark. You have that spark. So your soul was yearning to come back. Now, what's the base of the question here? The base of the question is, but my family ostracized me. It happens most of the time. Family will ostracize. That's just what it is. They don't have anything a part of it. You've changed. They don't want to change their lives. It's very convenient what they do. They don't want truth. They want fantasy. Okay? Right? So you were choosing truth. And you wanted absolute truth. So your spark came to life. And God put you in the right path. And put you in front of you the right people to teach you, to get the right answers. And that's what happened. Now, the end result was, or is that you're now a pariah in your family. That your family doesn't want any part of it. They're not interested. So, okay, that's their loss. 100%, that's their loss. But since your spark took you out and made you search for the truth, now, does that mean your family's going to dump you? No. And it shouldn't happen, right? The problem is we live in a cream puff generation, right? We live in a tissue generation. And that being the case, people don't want to have anything to do with it. So it could bust up families. Nonetheless, a person going in the right path, even if the family doesn't come along, right? You'll say it's not supposed to break up family. True? And they'll say you've changed. So I'll tell you the line I use, which didn't go very far, but I still think it's a good line. Where someone accused me, you're breaking up the family. You broke up the family. You know what the answer is? The answer is, or the answer I gave was, I'm reconnecting to a link in a chain that goes back more than 3,000 years. Right? I'm connecting a link in a chain goes back to my grandparents, my great-grandparents, throughout the generations. So we'll say what America did and other places did broke that chain. It broke that lineage, that Jewish lineage, and they threw their heritage in the garbage for nothing. That's what they did. So they're the ones that broke the chain. Even if they don't know what they're doing, they broke the chain. But if you're reconnecting to that chain, right? You're reconnecting, that's their problem. Right? Why did God take you out of the family? You're reconnecting to that chain that they don't want any part of. So what do you want? You want them to come along. I get it. They may never come along. They may give you a hard time the rest of your life. Could very well be. Not something we would necessarily sign up for if we had a good relationship with family. But if, okay, that's what it's going to be. But see, you're reconnecting to a chain. You're a link in a chain. If you're a link in a chain, you know what that means? It means they threw themselves out. They don't want. Right? I'll make it real graphic. Gemara Bava Kama says that if a Jew's ox gores the ox of a non-Jew, you're exempt. The Jew doesn't have to pay. If a non-Jew, his ox gores your ox, the Jew's ox, he has to pay. What's going on? Discrimination against non-Jews, maybe. Maybe I discussed this in, one of my last lectures on Tanakh Talk 2 weeks back. But what simple explanation? What does the Talmud there say? Talmud there says like this. Talmud says, why non-Jewish money over here is ownerless? And that the rabbis had a right to uproot their money? You know what the reason was? Because they didn't keep the Noahide laws. They didn't keep what's obvious. They didn't keep something that's universal. So you know what? You don't even keep what's basic. Murder, immorality, setting up law courts, idolatry. You don't even keep what's basic in that's universal. You don't even deserve your own money. You deserve to have your money uprooted. Right? They're going to say, well, how's that fair? They didn't sign up for that. The great-great-grandparents broke it. Okay, but you still have an obligation. All non-Jews out there have an obligation if they don't convert, to keep the Noahide laws. Things that make sense logically. So if that's the case, you don't have a complaint over here. You're not doing it also. Most non-Jews don't even know how to keep the Noahide laws. They don't know how to keep them properly. But the fact is, you didn't even keep what's universal. God says your money's hefker. Your money's ownerless. And I have the right, the rabbis have the right to say, you know what? Their ox scores your ox. I don't have to pay. Because you didn't even keep what's basic. So if you didn't keep what's basic, shut your mouth. You have no reason to talk. Keep your big mouth shut. You didn't keep what you're supposed to keep. What do you want from us? Oh, the rabbis, they make up their own laws. They make up their own things. They didn't keep what's basic. And if you don't keep what's basic, guess what? The world goes to pot. The world will be destroyed. Imagine if they didn't set up law courts. Not the law courts are so great today. Imagine if they didn't set up law courts. Imagine what the world would look like today. The world would be totally ownerless. The world would go back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. Back to that original chaos. Can't exist. We wouldn't be able to exist. Now you're going to bring a claim against the Jewish people who don't have a right to do that. You didn't even keep what you're supposed to keep, basically. Universally. Oh, gee, I didn't know. Really? You didn't know you weren't allowed to steal. So what about when you didn't give Uncle Sam what he deserved? Oh, that's different. Uncle Sam takes 38%, 32%. I paid too much in taxes. Oh, what about euthanasia? Come on. Uncle John deserved to die anyway. He's a burden on us, right? We're going to put him out of his own misery and out of our misery. No, that's murder. How'd you not know that? How'd you know not stealing this, that? You're liable. You're liable for bringing destruction to the world. Now, if that's the case, you can have hundreds and tens of thousands, millions of people, in India worshiping cows. In other things. You're going to say, oh, but they're not educated. I got plenty of people in India, Bangladesh, other people, other places. Contact me, ask me all kinds of questions. People can get to the truth. Doesn't matter, what their brain IQ is, unless they're mentally challenged. They can find the truth, but all these people are going to get wiped off the face of the map eventually. You're going to say, but it's not fair. Why isn't it fair? God gave you a brain. You don't have to be a genius. Does it really make a lot of sense to worship cows? No. Doesn't make so much sense. Christianity also doesn't make sense. But you know what? People aren't told to question. So people are kept stupid. They don't question anything. Once they start to question, everybody here listening has probably been thrown out of the church or wherever because they don't have answers. So they tell you don't question. Why don't question? Gotta have faith. Right? Back to Prince. Gotta have faith. Forget faith. It's gotta make sense. I have to be responsible for tens of millions of people who are sitting there worshiping cows, don't have half a brain to say it doesn't make any sense. Not my responsibility. It's something should be logical. Okay, they come to me. I have an obligation to teach them, to help them. Good. But if they go down their own foolish path, well, that's not my fault. And they can give me all the guilt they want. I got plenty of it. Take everybody listening plus infinity. Who's ever going to listen to this? I've gotten guilt up the gazoo. This is good therapy for me, right? Guilt up the gazoo. Guess what? I'm reconnecting a link into a chain. And there are people with half a brain or with PhDs, pilot higher and deeper, and Papa has dough that have no idea what they're talking about at all, right? So you take someone like me who's got a PhD and say, hey, I read an article on Wikipedia. I'm going to wipe out all Judaism, all Orthodox Jews. Do me a favor. Don't talk out of your elbow. Don't talk out of your elbow because I'm going to flush you, right? I'm going to flush you like that. You're not going to take much time. Not going to take much effort. You know why? Because people don't know nothing. Oh, but they're good at giving guilt. Oh, you've done this. Oh, you've done that. No. So the question is, why did Hashem take me out of my family? You're reconnecting to a link in a chain. Your link got broken through assimilation and intermarriage. So my chain also got broken. I'm also reconnecting. Also reconnected that chain. Well, guess what? Part of that chain is disappearing. Right? My mother's got 4 aunts and an uncle. Right? 2 of them are still alive. Got a great uncle, it's gonna be, I think, 90. I have a great aunt, just turned 97. Unbelievable. It should be well. Got long life. 3 out of those 5 lines spiritually wiped out through intermarriage and assimilation. The other 2 lines, one exists through me. My 7 kids, 6 grandkids, Ken Yearbo. They should continue and increase. And there's 1 line on life support. What do I mean life support? So I have cousins that are girls that intermarried, but the kids are Jewish technically. So it's only a matter of time before, they get married or whatever. If they have boys and they intermarry, that's it. That line's over also. Life support, not even, barely on life support. So now you look at that and you say, well, look, you're keeping one chain going. True. Get all the flack for it. Look, you changed, you this, you that. On top of everything, you broke this family. Not true. I'm reconnecting to a chain that goes back 3,000 years. When you link to a chain that goes back 3,000 years, family doesn't come along. That's not our problem. That's not our problem. That soul is reconnecting. That's a good thing. Family doesn't come along, okay? Who says they have to come along? They don't want to connect. They want to make fun. They want to say terrible things. We mentioned before. Onus Devarim, reminding a person of their past, Torah prohibition. Very severe prohibition. So then the second part of the question is there significance? It's only you. So we answered that, right? When I interviewed someone, they said, why me? Why did it happen to me, not anyone else? And what's the answer? You saw the same thing as your siblings. They didn't want to see it. They weren't interested. Okay. And that's part of the third part of the question is that, well, do I have this spark? Yeah, you do. You have that spark. They don't have it. If they wanted it, they could have it. They don't want it. Right? But make no mistake. Make no mistake. There's no feeling bad about it. It's uncomfortable. I get it. They may never support you. I get it. It may be very painful. You know what? At the end of the day, we have an obligation to serve the one and true God. That's it. That's our obligation. If family comes along, that's a blessing. If they don't come along, is that going to change anything? Now, you could say, some people could be broken by it. True? And it's hard because you want support, and they don't support you. And they kick you in the face, and they kick you in the head. Many times over. Painful. But guess what? Are we going to keep Torah mitzvahs or not? We're going to keep. We're going to do what we need to do. That's what we're going to do. Regardless. Because we're reconnecting to a link in a chain. Now, I mentioned before, people may just say, oh, whatever. I think that's a very good answer. I haven't destroyed anything. You who have intermarried have broken the chain. I'm reconnecting that chain. I thought it was a great argument. Didn't go anywhere. Person didn't want to hear it. Oh, you think you're better? Oh, you think you're this? Nothing to do with thinking better or not. Person intermarries, they break that chain. They assimilate, they break that chain. You reconnect to that chain that was lost. You can't worry about everybody else. You can't worry about everybody else. Right? So, again, I think that's a very good argument. But people don't want to hear it. They're not going to want to hear it. See, when a person intermarries and they break that chain, they don't think there's anything wrong with it. Or they'll give you 10 different reasons. Webster's 8th definition why it's okay. But for us, they're breaking the chain. So if we're reconnecting a chain, I don't know, maybe they think it sounds fanatical. Maybe. But we're reconnecting a chain. If we're reconnecting a chain, what's bad about that? What's bad about that is you can't eat in their house anymore. What's bad about that is you can't go out to dinner with them. It's inconvenient for them. They don't want to be inconvenienced. They don't want to be told, even if you don't say anything explicitly, what they're doing is wrong. So they'll say, we can agree to disagree. So that's a beautiful argument. It's only one problem. If you're in a debating team, you get an F. They'll just tell you to sit down. Oh, we can agree to disagree. We can agree to disagree. Come on. If you're in a debating team, you fail. It's not an argument. I don't have to give you an argument. Yeah, you know why you don't have to give you an argument? You have to give me an argument because I'll flush it. I'll flush you easily. And you won't have anything to say. So what are they going to say? They'll just make fun. So that would be my answer. That would be my answer. My short, long answer to that. Somebody asks, why are there two Talmuds? There's a Jerusalem Talmud. There's a Babylonian Talmud. What's the more widely studied? What's more widely studied is Babylonian Talmud. Right? Certainly more than the Jerusalem Talmud. And the halacha is, if there's a disagreement between the Babylonian Talmud and the Jerusalem Talmud, we go according to the Babylonian Talmud. Now, what's the reason? So, if you look at the Jerusalem Talmud in general, there was an interruption in the mid-4th century, give or take. The Romans, what did they do? Suppress Jewish scholarship in the land of Israel. Where did the Jewish scholars fled? Where did they flee to? They fled to Babylon. So what happened in Babylon? They were able to review the Talmud. give us about 150 years later, totally finished product. And that product became accepted. That was the final word. That's one explanation. Even though Jerusalem Talmud mostly has halachic rulings, Babylonian Talmud is a mix, right? The word Bavel means mixed. What's it mixed of? Scripture, halacha, discussion. So we get everything, right? A full diet, so to speak. Right? So the Gemara says the person should divide his learning between scripture, halacha, and erudition. Now also, Prophet Jeremiah says, he causes me to dwell in darkness, i.e., referring to the Babylonian Talmud. Well, why is it called darkness? So Rashi says that Babylonian Talmud is full of questions and doubts, often with no resolution. So if that's true, and the Jerusalem Talmud was written in the light of the Holy Land, why don't we go by the Jerusalem Talmud? Right? So it could be a person looking for lights, right? Give it a little more esoteric answer. Person's looking for lights, you're searching for light, you find light, boom, it illuminates. If the light is dim, you can't really see so well, you got to search further. You got to examine, it's like being in the dark. You got to examine everything. You got to turn it again, this, that, right? In order to try and figure out what's going on, right? You got to struggle to understand, categorize it, put pieces together. The question is, if you get the light straight away, or you have to dig and dig and dig and dig, who understands deeper? Not the one who gets the truth at the first glance, but the one who struggled, the one who worked hard to get to it, right? But that's really, that's really the difference. Another thing also is the Jerusalem Talmud is also very cryptic. It's also much harder to understand, as well. But in any case, Babylonian, we have to study Jerusalem Talmud also, right? But the bottom line is disagreement of opinion between the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmud. We go according to the Babylonian Talmud, right? As we explained. That's one explanation, right? One explanation. It can be multiple, multiple explanations. But that's one explanation. What does the word Bavli mean? Babylonian Talmud. That's what it means. Talmud Bavli means Babylonian Talmud. See, there are a bunch of other questions here. Someone asked, okay, the discrepancy, I have to look that up. In 2 Chronicles and Kings, about the age 20-year difference. Okay, I have to look that up. Someone asks, how Jewish can know how to act? How can a Jewish can know how to act? Well, I gave a, let me see if I find it here. Talking about proper tradition. Spoke about that last week, or this week, about proper tradition, on techelas, right? On that blue string people wear on tzitzit. So someone commented, they said a ger toshav is allowed to perform additional mitzvahs besides the typical 7. Yeah, the typical 7, let's make clear, typical 7 is just an umbrella. There are about 63, 65, 70 mitzvahs, depending according to who you go, right? And that's not creating a new religion. So the idea is it depends how far it goes. If there are things that are outrightly forbidden, and we hold you can't do it, that's creating a religion. That's what it's doing, 100%. Now, someone may say, there are other rabbis disagree. Okay. So they disagree. I'm not going according to their opinion. It says that non-Jew can keep whatever amount of Shabbos they want. Not holding that. Disagree with that. I got other people disagree with it. Got great rabbis who disagree with that. You want to say it's difference of opinion in certain ways? Okay. You can say that. There's a difference of opinion. What do I care? It's difference of opinion. I'm not holding according to the other opinion. I hold the other opinion's wrong. How about that? That other opinion is wrong. And other rabbis hold that I disagree with. And I have other bigger rabbis than them probably, that disagree as well. So you want to hold. So you as a non-Jew want to hold that, that level, what they do, whatever. Okay. Not, I'm saying I disagree. And they got other rabbis disagree. Right? So, but if a person goes too far, when non-Jews aren't allowed to do certain things, that's called making up a new religion. That's called chidush hadas. That's what it's called. So how do those other rabbis answer? I don't know. They'll give their own answers, whatever it is. We don't all agree on that. Okay? That could be. But, I guarantee those rabbis in the minority. 100%, they're in the minority. So, you want to hold according to the minority opinion? Fine. Right? A person wants to do that, it's fine. I'm bringing out what the majority opinion is. You want to claim other people disagree? Okay. It's fine. They can disagree. 100% they can disagree. Fine. So let them disagree. How Jewish can they know how to act? I'll tell you like this. So the answer to that question is, it's every Sunday, 2:30 Eastern time, 9:30 Israel time. No Hide Nations. You can sign up for free. No Hide Nations. Go through all the classes on the No Hide laws. Not going to stand on one foot and say, gee, how far can a No Hide go? Depends what it is. Depends what it is. But I would say like this. There are things that No Hide shouldn't do, not because they're obligated to No Hide laws. They shouldn't do it because it's a moral imperative not to do. Right? But you have to see each one. You can't just say, well, how Jewish can a non-Jew be? You can't straddle the line. That's what I'm going to say. You can't straddle the line. You can't live in both worlds. Either you're going to be a no-hide, keep what you have to keep, do what you need to do, and that's it. You want to do more within reason, within limitations, what the no-hide laws are. Okay. You want to go beyond that? That's a different issue. That I said before. That's making up a new religion, right? But it's going to depend on what the issue is. How far can a non-Jew keeping Shabbos, keeping festivals? Some things totally don't apply. Some things only apply to a little bit. Depends what it is. Not going to answer that on one foot. So someone said that a Reform rabbi said, mitzvah of shooing away the mother bird, that's what, when the child did that and he fell and he died, he's supposed to get long life. That made Elisha ben Abuya, otherwise known as Acher, the other one, made him a heretic. True. Right? That's what the Gemara at the end of Chulin says. True. But the Ben Ish Chai, more than 100 years ago, says both mitzvahs guarantee long life. So Elisha ben Abuya said, how can it be if both mitzvahs guarantee long life? How could the child die? Fulfilling the mitzvah of the father and doing the mitzvah that is supposed to have long life. So the rabbi said it doesn't mean in this world. It means the next world. It means he didn't understand what the verse meant. So this comes on the Ben Ish Chai and says he didn't fulfill either mitzvah. He was coming down the ladder, doing shiluach haken. He didn't finish the mitzvah, and he didn't fulfill the mitzvah of the father. So the Ben Ish Chai there says he didn't fulfill either mitzvah. That's the answer. Right? And he became an atheist. Right? 100% he became an atheist. And Gemara says Rabbi Meir took him into Gan Eden. Right? Took him into paradise. You have to understand, he was on the Sanhedrin. Elisha ben Abuya. His transgressions were so great he couldn't go into paradise. His mitzvahs were so great he couldn't necessarily go to Gehenna. Couldn't go to hell to get fixed up. So there's a fire coming out of his grave. Rabbi Meir said when he died, he was going to take him into Gan Eden, take him into paradise. Gemara and Chagiga. And what happened? So when Rabbi Meir died, the fire stopped. So yeah, he became a heretic only because he didn't understand what it meant, what the verse meant. That was what threw him off. Finally, doesn't mean that was the first thing that he thought of. That I'll become a heretic. He was already reading things and doing things that he shouldn't have been doing anyway. He was already going down the spiral, down the spiral path. This was the final knockout blow. But it's true. He became a heretic because of that. But again, the Ben Ish Chai said he didn't fulfill either mitzvah. If he didn't fulfill either mitzvah, then how could he get long life? He didn't fulfill either mitzvah. But in either case, the rabbi said, Elisha ben Abuya, you're wrong. That's not what the verse means. Totally not what it means. And that's what they said, and he blew it, and it became a heretic. Someone asks, are there extra commandments for a Noahite if he or she shifts to Israel become a Ger Toshav? There is no Ger Toshav today. Let's make clear. There is no Ger Toshav because we don't have a Jubilee year. There's no Yovel. Ger Toshav is tied up to the laws, to the sabbatical year, i.e. the 50th year called Yovel. So it doesn't matter if you come to Israel or not. There's no Jubilee year. There's no Ger Toshav. We have no mitzvah of Ger Toshav today. Right? Ger Toshav, if it would exist, has to go in front of a Beis Din, in front of a rabbinical court to be a Ger Toshav. A Noahide does not. If a Noahide wants to, they can. If a Noahide wants to go in front of witnesses, in front of other people and declare, they're going to keep the Noahide laws, they can also do that. Is it worth anything for them to do it? To themselves, it might be. It might give them strength in doing it. Okay. Not going to say not. If it helps them and makes them feel more confident, great. Do they have an obligation to? Certainly not. Ger Toshav, different issue. Totally different issue. Ger Toshav, there's an obligation to go in front of Beis Din and declare to become a Ger Toshav. Today it doesn't exist. By a Noahide, if a Noahide wants to go in front of a Beis Din, they can. Obligation, they have no obligation. None. If they want to, okay. No, a person says, I'm going to do it and whatever, fine. Just realize what it's worth in reality. If it makes a person feel better, makes them feel stronger in their beliefs, okay. I'm not going to tell people not to do it, but I want to make sure people understand what it's worth. For them, it might be worth a lot because they feel they're doing something. They feel they're doing something concrete in front of witnesses, okay? Certainly no obligation, none whatsoever. Ger Toshav, totally different issue. But Ger Toshav doesn't exist today anyway. Doesn't exist. Right? So the point is moot, as we would say. Yeah, any other questions? Why are so many people against joining the army? First of all, if there was a war, if there was a prophet today, and he would say, okay, everybody has to go to war called the Milchemes Mitzvah, a war that the mitzvah to go to, everybody goes. Even if someone got married within the first year, they have to go. So that is definitely not the case today. Do we need a standing army? 100%. No one will disagree. Time of King David, there was a standing army. We also need people to learn. But a person has to remember also, what's the point of the army? What do they want? Everybody will say, tongue in cheek, they'll say, we want you to uphold the burden. We want you to carry the burden. If our kids have to go in the army, so your kids should have to go in the army, okay? So if a person is not learning, and they're not going to learn, because here in Israel, if you want to work, you want to be legal, you have to have done the army or get an exemption, right? So they'll say, you know what? You're not upholding your obligation. Now, if it would be an obligation, the prophet says everyone has to go to war, everyone goes to war. You don't need everyone to war. Certainly not. They don't need more people. I had a friend of mine years ago had a fight to get in the army because they didn't need him. They don't need him. Now, even if that's the case, what is the purpose? Even if you tell me there are separate units today, you can have a religious unit today, fine. What is the purpose of what the Israelis want in, bringing in ultra-Orthodox Jews to the army? They'll tell you it's about upholding what everyone does. They'll tell you it's about shirking your responsibility if you don't. That's what they'll say. What do they really want? What do they want with integration? They want you, i.e., you ultra-Orthodox Jew, whatever left of you, whatever level you're holding, they want you to be like them. That's what they want. 100%. Not hiding anything. That's what they want. So they made a war. They made a war against us. They'll say, fine, we'll let 2,000 people sit and learn. You don't need so many people sit and learn. We do. If they replace a whole generation, got wiped out. right? But the point is they made war against us. So now they made war against us. My Rebbe said, we're not going to give you one. We're not going to give you one. Because they made war against us. But their goal is to make us like them. I'll be very graphic here. Very, very graphic. And you can take this for whatever it is, for whatever it's worth. Today in the Israeli army, on the books, according to the law, in this country, if a woman gets pregnant, she's allowed to have 3 free abortions. That is on the books. What's the average age a person goes in the army? 18? Men and women mixed together? What in the world do you think is going on? We're not, no different than college. Whatever Victor Miller say of blessed memory, and he's talking about 70 years ago, right? What did he call a college campus in a dorm? Sorry. What did he call a dorm with, men and women living together? What did he call it? He called it a brothel. Now you're going to say, come on, Rabbi, that's extreme. I went to college. I know what's out there. I don't think it's got better since I went there. Right? It's a free-for-all. Total immoral place. That's what it is. Some more, some less, doesn't matter. We're not living in Victorian England. We're going to keep this clean. Right? So you're gonna take someone, comes from a pure house, and stick him in a cesspool? I don't think so. So you say, but you got religious units, okay? If the person's not going to learn anyway, might be good for them. Certainly might be good for them. Others may disagree and say no. Depends. Right? The problem is it's a total immoral place. And a person, there are people who've gone in the army, came out stronger in religious belief and all that. Right? There are many people who came out worse. Totally came out worse. So they want us to be like them. That's their goal. They make no mistake. They'll call it shirking responsibility. That's what they want. Right? Now, does that mean we don't need a standing army? We need a standing army. Everyone agree you need a standing army. But guess what? It's not the standing army that's keeping peace here. You got other nations surrounding Israel want to rip us to shreds. How the fact we still here 70 years later? A miracle, no question about it. It's not because of the army. Not even because of nuclear weapons. Even though they know we have nuclear weapons, also good deterrent. That's not the reason. A lot of botches in the army also. But you look at a lot of the wars that happened, it wasn't because of the might of the army. It was miracles. Miracles. So now you're taking an immoral group. They want us to be like them. Why would we send anyone there? They don't even want us, practically speaking. You need kosher food, you need to pray, you need this, you need that. They don't want it. They don't want any part of it. So why, so they use the excuse it's about shirking your responsibility. But they could also get exemptions they want. Secular Israelis get exemptions they want. They choose not to. Okay, it's their choice. 100% it's their choice. Right? But to go into such a place, why should we do it? Why in the world should we do it? You say, well, it's a numbers game. Think about it. You take all these countries, God forbid that would invade. On all sides, we'd be in big trouble. You think another 1% is going to help? It's not going to help. Again, if it's a war that everyone has to go, you go. But in the bigger scheme of things, if it's 100,000 against 1, now it's 100,000 against 5, against 10. The numbers are still astronomical against you. It's not the numbers. And not only that, not fighting war the same they used to anyway, but it's another issue. But the numbers don't matter. The numbers exponentially are not going to matter here. Even if they would take all these ultra-Orthodox Jews. Numbers are not going to matter. You're still outgunned, you're still outnumbered infinitely. So you still need people to learn. The numbers aren't going to change. Not going to change anything. Why do so many know I'd still want to hold on to JC? You know why? Because the last thing for them to leave is the fact that if you don't believe in JC, you're going to fry in hell forever. They have to be 100% convinced, 100% convinced that they don't believe in JC. If they're not 100% convinced, how are they going to give him up? They're going to be afraid. Why are they going to be afraid? Very simple. What if he's really the truth? What if Christianity is really the truth? They're going to hang on for dear life until they know 100% or at least close to that that's false. That's why they're going to hold on to it. Or some people come to this realization they're already married to a Christian. Not that they marry a Christian anyway. A lot of times they're already married to a Christian when it comes to this realization. Right? But who says an Ohad can't marry a Christian? They might have educational problems with their kids and other things. Might come into conflict, true. But who says they can't marry a Christian? They're allowed to marry a Christian. They're allowed to marry an atheist for that matter. They're allowed to. Nothing wrong with it. They're going to have problems, I think, in other ways. But if they can work out that problem, there's no issue. Definitely no issue. How do you break? Someone asks, JIT, how do you break bad dietary habits? Eating milk and meat. You got to break it. Certain things you don't eat. Listen, a person loves shrimp, let's say. So they have this kosher fish and they call it, it's not shrimp. They make it taste like shrimp. It's not crab. They have plenty of things. Bacon bits. Total chemical, probably kill you in the process. They say it tastes like bacon. There are plenty of things a person can eat. That's kosher, that has the status of something. Maybe have the taste of something that's non-kosher. What about things that don't? Right? Example, you take, whatever. Take things you mix milk and meat. A person has a taco. You put cheese on a taco. Okay, so you can put fake cheese that is not real cheese. Put it on a taco. Right? There are some people. I had somebody tell me they like shrimp too much, then they're not going to convert. Okay. How's a person become disciplined? You become disciplined. You have to give it up. I don't have any good answers. You just have to stop. Right? But again, if you wanted to have, a taco and you wanted to have cheese on the taco, you can get parv cheese. It's not real cheese. You can say it doesn't taste the same. Okay. Can't have everything. But if you want to go through it, that's what you have to do. Either change the ingredients, to make it kosher, or you don't eat it. Self-sacrifice. Some people might say, come on, if you believe in it, you give it up. You give it up. You're going to say it's not so easy. Okay. I've had people tell me this a lot. There are people out there, plenty of people struggle with food, dietary laws. They struggle with it. At some point, you have to give it up. That's just something you're going to have to do. So either find other kosher ingredients that you don't transgress over here, right? That you won't transgress, or you just don't eat it. How do you not eat it? You don't eat it. I don't have any good answers. Give it up. That's what you have to do. It's hard. Okay, I'm not going to say it's not hard. It's hard. Someone who likes shrimp, let's put it like this. Shrimp, oysters, whatever. Imagine shrimp. Shrimp is called, scavenger of the ocean. It's like a cockroach of the ocean. Now, most people look at it, they don't look at it that way. It's all dressed up and, different sauces and different things. It's beautiful. If you think about what it really is, you won't eat it. It's gross. People slurp oysters. Grew up in Boston. People love oysters and cohogs and all the other stuff, right? A lot of the stuff slimy, disgusting. People don't think about it. They don't think about it at all. They eat it. A lot of people eat it. Lobster. Who doesn't like lobster? Some people say, how could you give up lobster? Think about how lobster is cooked. Most people don't care. It's boiled alive. Is there anything crueler than that? You take it alive and you put it in boiling water. That's even forbidden, should be forbidden for a non-Jew. Or maybe just a moral imperative. You're going to say, so what? What do I care how it's cooked? I like how it tastes. That's what people answer. Right, but how can you eat it like that? People don't think. Oyster is a good example. It's slimy. People like it. People like it. Probably full of worms and other things. Oh, so what? People eat all kinds of garbage. All kinds of garbage. I'll tell you one thing, for a Jew, for sure, doesn't affect a non-Jew. Right? For a Jew, for sure, for them to come to Torah mitzvahs, that's the first thing they have to give up. First thing they have to do is start keeping kosher. Get this garbage out of your system to be able to hear Torah. Non-Jew doesn't apply. So you tell me, but it's hard to give up. Okay. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. So you got to be disciplined. There are plenty of things out there that you can eat that are permissible. And if a person's really that desperate, you can find things that are substitute, for sure. You're going to say, but it's not the same thing. It's not like eating a Big Mac. It's not like going to Wendy's, or I don't know if they still have in Boston, Hobbies, right? You got these steak sandwiches, whatever. Or a hoagie if you grew up in Philadelphia. It's not the same, okay? It's not the same. I agree. So, you believe in God who runs the world, or you don't? But I have desires. Okay, so you don't have to convert. Person doesn't have to convert. To me personally, I think it's kind of silly. If a person's already come so far, so you give up Arby's, you give up Wendy's. I'm not gonna say it's easy, but if you believe in the bigger scheme of things, so then you're basically just giving into your base desires. And that's what it is. So you're gonna say, come on, we're on a very low level. I don't care. Care what level a person's on. You're giving into base desire and say that's more important than keeping God's law. But you tell me I don't have to convert, right? Person 100% doesn't have to convert. Is it easy? The things you give up, true. I remember, finally M&M's became kosher. Oreos became kosher. I was like, that's exciting. Grew up on Oreos, right? Okay. So certain things you give up, it's true. Definitely true, but a person doesn't, person doesn't have to, person doesn't have to, go through this. If they want to give into their base desires, fine. Unless God feels you should convert and you don't, then punishment's much more severe. Not everyone's made to convert. I just think that, for someone to give up something like, certain things in food, there are alternatives. You can make, you can have a taco and cheese with meat and have fake cheese. A person can say, but it's not the same. Okay. No, maybe it's not the same. You have any other choice? No other choice. You take what you can get. Anyone's ever ate shrimp and you eat it's not shrimp, tastes similar. If you know the taste. Tastes similar. Is it exactly the same taste? No, not the same taste. But if you want that taste, that's what you have. What's the kosher way to have fun if it's not Shabbos or holidays? Oh. I got this question. Someone asked, what do you do for hobbies? I was like, I don't have any hobbies. Torah is my hobby. Learn, read, take care of the body also. Person exercise, go on walks, think of God's creation, you walk in parks, whatever. You need downtime. That I would agree. Person can't study all the time. You need downtime. But it has to be in a kosher way. I wouldn't say, a kosher way is watching videos. That's not a kosher way. That just feeds person's desire in other ways. Right? So, recreation's a good thing if you're into recreation. Reading's a good thing if you're into reading. Volunteering, doing acts of loving kindness. People volunteer in hospitals, get involved in, different causes. Those are kosher ways to do things. Someone asks, can an Ohide, if they live in Dubai, and on the books it says they can have more than one wife? No, doesn't matter what the law of the land is. If the Torah says it's forbidden, it's forbidden. Right? The law of the land doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. If the Torah permits it, then it's permitted, regardless of the law of the land. If the law of the land permits it, the Torah says it's forbidden, it doesn't matter. It'd still be forbidden. They're having a problem today. You got marijuana that's you can buy in a lot of states. You get legally. The religious communities become somewhat of a problem. Recreational drug use, right? So who says that's permitted? Right? I made a video on Tanakh Talk on that. About casual drug use. It's also forbidden. I don't care if religious people do it. It's forbidden. Totally forbidden. Right? Now, let's say in certain places, the law of the land says it's okay. So what? The Torah says I got to guard my body. That's not guarding your body. You're going to say, what about alcohol? Alcohol abuse is worse. True. And you make Kiddush Friday night, you can make on alcohol. So, fine. You don't want to make on alcohol, you can make on grape juice. Right? But the thing is, you can't abuse it. It's because it's permissible, doesn't mean it's a good thing. Right? Take marijuana. Who says it's a good thing to do? I don't care if the law of the land says it's good. There's a lot of negative effects, many negative effects. Could be alcohol is worse. I might agree. Alcohol may be worse. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Even, you have to know how to use it. So even if it's the law of the land, let's just get back to the point here. Even if it's the law of the land and it's permissible, you're not allowed to. Still forbidden. Was Judah's relationship with Tamar forbidden? No, it's before the Torah was given. Right? There's the question how they could have been together if let's say they kept the Torah. How could they have been together? Father-in-law and daughter-in-law is forbidden. So you can say the same thing that Jacob married two sisters. Right? It's also forbidden. Right? But he saw that the Jewish people were supposed to come out of both. So he saw that was all right. That's what God wanted. Same thing. Not only that, kingship comes out of Tamar. Right? So you see, it's obviously something that was meant to be. So some commentaries say that relationship didn't last. That relationship ended. They weren't together. Some say that the relationship continued and they stayed together. Right? The difference of opinion. Right? But the simple answer is Torah wasn't given yet, so it was okay. Wasn't a forbidden relationship. Someone asked which prayer book is best for Shabbos. I would say the Art Scroll prayer book. It has it's an Art Scroll prayer book that has for every day and Shabbos. Also has for Shabbos by itself. So if you go to artscroll.com, you put in Siddur, for Shabbos, the Art Scroll prayer book will come up. Is it forbidden to brush your hair on Shabbos? If you use a brush, it's going to take out hair. Yes. If you use a soft brush, it should be okay. How do you know if it's soft enough? Test it. If you have a soft brush, you brush your hair comes out, it's not soft enough. So if you don't find a brush that's soft that doesn't take out hair, then you can't comb it. If you use a comb and hair is not going to come out, that's fine. But a brush is going to take out hair, be forbidden. The Judah didn't follow the no-hide laws. I don't know that. First of all, we're talking about the Torah here. Torah says it's forbidden relationship between father-in-law and daughter-in-law. Right? Who says that's forbidden for a non-Jew? I don't know if that's forbidden for a non-Jew. I don't know if that applies in no-hide laws. Right? I don't think it's forbidden. So if you held by the no-hide law, that's not a problem. The question that comes up is, if the patriarchs and their kids were Jews, how could they have done certain things? That's one of them. How could Judah be married to Tamar? How could Jacob marry two sisters? Right? There are a number of questions. Right? There are some questions also if they're, if they were no-hide or not. Right? But there is a major question if they were no-hide or Jews, or if they were considered Jews. Major question. Someone asks. Someone points out as well, right? Tamar had to trick Yehuda, right? It's true. But he saw afterwards it was meant to be. The only question was he allowed to stay with her or not? That was the question. Someone here says it's a much bigger topic I'm not going to get into now. Maybe we'll discuss it next week. We'll see that the rabbi suggests mental health issues using psychedelic drugs. Or I heard someone speaking about it using, some sort of psychedelic drugs or mushrooms to better into Kabbalah, better into godliness, other things. It's a big problem. That's a big problem. Going to lead to other problems, right? But I've heard it's a more common thing. It's becoming a more common thing to do so. So how is that permitted? I don't know. I don't know how that's permitted. Doesn't sound like it should be permitted. Right? Because it causes a lot of other issues. Like using drugs. Totally like using drugs. The Jewish people owned slaves when it was legal. Yeah. Did they make alcohol during Prohibition? I can't answer. I don't know. Don't know. I mean, they're allowed to drink wine. Shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't be a problem. So if they didn't want to get caught and they were afraid, they could use grape juice. Okay. But could they make their own wine? I mean, yeah, the law of the land says not, but you could. Yeah, as long as you don't get caught. Shouldn't be an issue. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, someone here points out just because it's common doesn't mean it's permissible, right? Homosexuality, good case. There are plenty of other things also, right? But just because people do it, yeah. Again, I'm saying it's becoming a problem in the Orthodox world. I've heard more and more stories about people doing it. Recreational marijuana. Becoming a problem, right? I'm not going to say it's permissible. Certainly not. I wouldn't say it's loophole. Who said you're allowed to use drugs in general? Who said it? It doesn't matter what the law of the land is. Who says you're supposed to do it? Right? There's an obligation to guard your body. This isn't it. I want to reach higher levels spiritually. If that's the case, whatever. It's mitzvah ba'aver. You're doing transgression at the same time. You're trying to do a mitzvah here. Right? These are things you don't play with. Shouldn't be played with. People are doing it. Doesn't mean it's right. That doesn't mean it's right. All right. On that note, I'm going to stop here. Anyone has any questions? I do this every Tuesday. Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Rabbi Chaim Coffman or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN